Am I wrong to say that there is a corporate institutional attempt, governmental attempt here, and the buck stops with Trump, so I'm not blaming him, but because he's trying to resist it a little bit, but not enough, that this is permanent state of martial law enforced by a robot technocracy with a medical tyranny behind it? I mean, talk about a nightmare dystopia. Am I exaggerating to call this the twilight of freedom and the onset of permanent martial law?
That is a serious and severe risk that is being way discounted by too many people in the country. And one of my first triggers, Peter Hitchens, the brother of Christopher Hitchens, great iconoclastic intellectual from the United Kingdom, right away said, as soon as everybody in power agrees on something, you immediately should become skeptical, not trustworthy. And when you have all of these governments around the world all agreeing with one another suddenly to do something as extreme as shut down their entire economy and civil society in a way that frankly didn't even happen during World War I or World War II. We still had much more functioning economy than we have right now in parts of the world. Their willingness to do so suggest a coordination, suggest a degree of powerful institutions and individuals that are pursuing this for their own objectives and agenda, and as a practical experiment in how much power can a government seize without people second guessing it or questioning it.
Robert Barnes, of course, is a famous constitutional lawyer. He's a criminal lawyer. He's a First Amendment lawyer, and he's done a lot of great work for us as a lawyer and does some great work for us advising us right now. And he joins us because he's really concerned, like I am, at the real target, our economy. And you see AP and others coming out and CNBC, wow, the economy deteriorating faster than we thought. And so here to give us his analysis for the next really 15, 20 minutes, I'm going to give him the floor. So, Bob, let it roar with your I really respect you. You're a smart cookie, one of the smartest I know, with what you really think's going on and what you think the main target is.
I mean, no doubt about it. I mean, well, the first thing that stands out or that comes up is the degree to which, I mean, going into the worries that a virus will give the government the ability to seize power and in an unchecked way is coming to bear. I mean, for example, the Hong Kong protests which were rocking the entire country of China have now disappeared because of the virus. The Yellow Vest protests that were rocking Macron's government in France and actually having an effect across Europe and the world has also now disappeared. Just today, Politico has reported that the Department of Justice here in the United States is seeking approval for indefinite detention and imprisonment of an American citizen without any conviction of a crime or anything wrong that person has done. They want authority to extend quarantine power beyond that which it's ever been approved of. Now, there's a lot of bad legal precedents out there. I had a debate years ago with a legal scholar about how one of the biggest legal loopholes in the entire constitutional structure of the federal government and our state governments was quarantine power. That in the name of public health, governments can, under various precedents that currently exist and continue to exist, seize power in ways, violate every single constitutional right or liberty you have, and courts have historically turned a blind eye to it and refused to enforce constitutional protections. Just a few years ago in Arizona, someone was detained against his will because they claimed he had a communicable disease. He said he didn't. They claimed he did. He went through a long, extensive fight, ended up in prison for a year. And guess what? It turned out he was right. The government was wrong. He didn't even have the communicable disease. But if the mere allegation that you have a disease is sufficient to or might have a disease, because that's what most of these shutdown orders are based on. They're based on you might have it or might get it. Well, think about what evidentiary standard that is.
I said I would interrupt, but let me just back up here. I realize I keep saying Hong Kong. They're after Hong Kong, too. It's Taiwan that had embarrassed Xi Jinping, and now he's used this to shut that all down. But as a legal scholar and respected constitutional lawyer, am I wrong to say that there is a corporate institutional attempt, governmental attempt here, and the buck stops with Trump, so I'm not blaming him, but because he's trying to resist it a little bit, but not enough, that this is permanent state of martial law enforced by a robot technocracy with a medical tyranny behind it? I mean, talk about a nightmare dystopia. Am I exaggerating to call this the twilight of freedom and the onset of permanent martial law?
That is a serious and severe risk that is being way discounted by too many people in the country. Just look around. You have people like the mayor of New Orleans and other city and county officials across the country claiming now an emergency power to prohibit people from purchasing, buying, or selling guns. One of the great concerns about the issue of the background checks was what would happen if people use the government used the excuse of the background check to simply deny purchase altogether. For example, the theory was that what will happen is at some point in the future, the government will simply never process your background check. And that way they can prohibit you from buying and selling a gun, even though on paper it's just a background check. They just never process your background check when you would be otherwise cleared. Well, that's already starting to happen in some parts of the country. Right now, if you wanted to form a petition for a political protest, you wouldn't be able to get the petition or the permit to do so in almost any city or state in the country, definitely not any major city or state. And you're under a specific order in some states, or at least being interpreted as having to stay home, except for essential business work, like your caller was just talking about. Well, what does that mean? That means you can't go out and publicly protest, does it not? This is the scope of, you're having Fourth Amendment issues with the way they're using surveillance and cooperating with private companies and the government to track people's behavior, to track people's locations, to track people's conduct, all in the name of let's prevent this virus based on questionable data and modeling. And so I think you look at all these what's happening, not only here, but around the world. I mean, I was concerned right away. I was concerned about the virus because you were raising that concern. Other people were raising that concern very early that this could become a pandemic. There's been over decades of warnings to China in particular because of their culinary habits, because of their, particularly with bats, because bats carry a wide range of unique viruses that once transmitted to humans are tough to deter, and the way the Chinese government was trying to suppress it initially. But clearly there's been an overreaction by governments around the world. And one of my first triggers, Peter Hitchens, the brother of Christopher Hitchens, great iconoclastic intellectual from the United Kingdom, right away said, as soon as everybody in power agrees on something, you immediately should become skeptical, not trustworthy. And when you have all of these governments around the world all agreeing with one another suddenly to do something as extreme as shut down their entire economy and civil society in a way that frankly didn't even happen during World War I or World War II. We still had much more functioning economy than we have right now in parts of the world. Their willingness to do so suggest a coordination, suggest a degree of powerful institutions and individuals that are pursuing this for their own objectives and agenda, and as a practical experiment in how much power can a government seize without people second guessing it or questioning it under these contexts. They couldn't achieve this with the threat of terrorism. They only got so far. They could only achieve this through the threat of crime. There again, they only got so far. But it's clearly they are learning that telling people, hey, a pandemic is coming and it's going to kill everybody or kill tons of people and our hospitals are going to be overcrowded, that just the threat of it, like the movie V for Vendetta, where they premised the entire totalitarian society being able to seize power on the threat of a pandemic, and then secretly had the vaccine for the pandemic all along and enriching themselves in the process as well. Well, we're seeing it practically. I mean, they're seeing a degree of public compliance that we almost have never seen before. And as the government says, you're not going to go to work today. You're not going to take your kid to school today. You're not going to go to church today. You're not going to go to a concert or a theater or a public event today. You're not going to hang out with your friends today. You're not going to go out into the street today. And 99.9% of the world is complying. And anyone who doesn't, they mock, they satirize, they critique. And then they're starting to escalate the rhetoric now to these people really are threats. You're going to see the same logic they use against people who raise questions about the safeties of vaccines start to be used against anybody who raises questions about the safety of these mitigation tactics involving panics. They're going to say, oh, these are the kind of people who want to bring disease into your school, disease into your neighborhood, disease into community. They really want to kill grandma. Anytime I've raised questions about this, routinely and repeatedly attacked across the board from using those kind of arguments. So I think we're going to see that. This is a very dangerous time for two big reasons. For the reasons that you identify, which is that this is a severe threat because the governments have historically used the threat of a virus to seize power in ways that they could never do in any other context. And from a law, and what my 2 cents on that is from a lawyer's perspective in America, the most dangerous precedents for executive power and state power in this country are in the virus context. It's in the virus context that you see people are shocked to discover, okay, can someone just come to your house, arrest you, do what they did in China? go, lock everybody down and then drag them out of their apartments whenever they wanted to. Could that happen here in the United States? Well, on paper, no, but our legal history says the opposite. Our legal history shows that there have been examples where there have been virus pandemics. There's been a panic reaction to that pandemic. The government has used it to seize power they could never otherwise seize, taking people, and just recently, I mean, like I said, within the last 10, 15 years in Arizona, they did it to an individual. They locked them up against his will. They refused to let him to do anything, and it turned out they were wrong. They locked him up for about a year or so, illegitimately. But so our precedents are that governments can do this, and look at how quickly they're rushing to do it. Today, there's an announcement in the Hill that they're going to send the National Guard out for the purposes of monitoring and helping with the testing and things of that nature. I mean, does anyone really accept that that's what the full intention is of some of the people that are pushing this panic? It's an easy pretext to seize power. If this was happening in China or Russia, we would immediately spot it as an attempted power grab. Then we should be, our risk is far higher if we don't pay attention and if we're not calling things out and if we're not warning people of the worst possible consequences than if we stay silent, stay mute, and censor ourselves. The second dangerous component of this is they are truly sinking the economy. So, I mean, already people don't fully realize what's happening on Wall Street. We have a lot of a debt-driven system where corporations have been buying back their stock, and much of the stock market increase is due to that. And so consequently, like, here's a big warning sign. The Federal Reserve, there's an overnight market where you buy and sell various forms of debt, and it's called the repo market. And it, in fact, is critical to the liquidity of every major corporation in the country and every government, including our own. And the key and it was that market's problems in substantial part that led to the 2009 financial crisis. Well, the Fed usually helps guarantee money, just prints money and throws it into the system to keep it afloat. Well, normally, though, they cap it at between 50 to 75 billion. Then they went up to 150 billion. This week, they went up to $1 trillion a day. In fact, the Fed has committed to put more money on their balance sheet, 4 times more money on their balance sheet than they did in all of the financial crisis of 2008 in just the next 30 days. They're committing to printing as much money as more than half the national debt.
So this has Weimar Republic written all over it.
Exactly. People forget those things happen fast. Those things didn't happen slow. All right. The Great Depression happened in about 6 months, and we spent 12 years trying to get our way out of it, and it took a world war to do so. The Weimar Republic, I was telling somebody the other day, if you want to watch a documentary on what might be coming down the pipeline, watch the show Babylon Berlin, which is about the German Republic during the German era, the Berlin population during that era. And one of the fascinating things they portray is they show how 95% of the people didn't take Nazis seriously at all, up until the time the Nazis actually had power. So there was this slow reaction to risk. There was no Alex Jones calling it out and crying out, saying and warning people of the risk in Germany. And those that were on smaller scale and were, of course, systematically ignored. And so here you and I both have a lot of friends and family and community and other people that are in the working class community. I don't think anybody that's advising Trump does. I don't think anybody in the press does. So they understand that 1 week of unemployment, that they got basically enough money to survive 1 to 2 weeks. A typical person in America, blue collar guy in America, has about $400 in savings in his bank account. He can survive 1 week, maybe 2 at the most. Unemployment on average pays less than half.
That's right. About half the country is either on welfare or living paycheck to paycheck.
That's what's going to happen. And from a experimental perspective, the government creates massively dependent population. You want health care, now you can only get it from the government. You want to be able to pay your bills, you can only get it from the government. You want to be able to live in your house, you can only get it from the government. You want access to food, you're going to need the funds to be able to buy it, and you're going to need to get that from the government. So that's the great danger with this.
No, I totally agree. I want to ask you this question. How long do you think it'll be until a depression is irreversible, and as overextended as we are, as drugged out as we are, as much on welfare as we are, as divided as we are going to be way, I think, more pliant to the government, but also more destructive to each other than the Great Depression. I mean, I think we are in the most dangerous point in American history right now.
No doubt about it. We're within 30 to 45 days of hitting Depression-era irreversible trends.
I totally agree. That's the number I come up with. It's watching it unravel. How do you come to that number? I know you're a numbers guy.
Goldman Sachs is predicting 24% contraction just in the second quarter, and unemployment rate of double digits, which in practical terms is the equivalent of about 20% under the old definition in the 1920s.
That's right, a depression. Exactly. Yeah. And they're talking about 50% unemployment within 6 months. And let me move to this now, Mr. Barnes. David Knight at Libertarian on Twitter. Document cam shot, please. Here is his tweet. I was just asking callers earlier calling in about how they're all getting their critical infrastructure notes from the state police, from the governors, from their bosses, that they're allowed to travel outside their house. This is your papers to leave in Nazi Germany. Note expiration date at bottom, April 2021. And sure enough, David's been sent one of them. More coming in right now. Corona@Infowars.com. Send them in, folks. But black them out like this guy's done. Bigger than hashtag COVID-19. Reference statute gives exemptions for essential delivery under curfew. Military doctrine, hashtag martial law 2020. Hashtag lockdown movement. Communications. And then it goes. Here is the actual letter. You can just click on the letter there for folks on Twitter, please. And we'll give them a full screen shot. Yeah, let's give folks the HD if we can. Can we? There we go. Thank you. This certificate of post-disaster reentry is to, and identifies the bearer as representative of a certified. So they're using the martial law localized of a hurricane, but this is general for a year. In accordance with the NCGS 166A-19.70, and grants the bearer the privilege of entering a designated curfew. You have privilege now, as provided the following requirements are met. There is a declaration of state of emergency or state of disaster in effect, and there's a curfew in effect in the declared area, and the governor has issued an executive order invoking the privileges listed in NCGS 166A-19.70. And watch, you'll have to have the vaccine. They'll have it in a few months. You'll have to have the vaccine to travel now, folks. Not just on an airplane, but out of your house. 4, entry shall be granted for the limited purpose of delivering or assisting in the distribution of essentials or assisting in the restoration of utility services. 5, the bearer of this certificate and all associates must follow the route specialized by law enforcement or other local official, if any. So you must only drive on the roads you're authorized to. This is martial law, according to Black's Law Dictionary, which it says there is no law in martial law. It's whatever they want to do till someone in power claims they've restored the order. Robert Barnes.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I'll give him credit for using creative language. I mean, Governor Newsom was more of a dim-witted guy, so he actually sort of blurted it out earlier this week, and then they had to retract it. He's like, "Oh, I didn't mean martial law or anything like that, or the National Guard coming out in this way." And instead, they're using language like curfew, using language like stay at home, using language that sounds much nicer than martial law. But the effect of what they're declaring is, in the name of the police power of the state, we're going to suspend all of your rights and liberties until we say otherwise.
And the bureaucrats are all, just like in California, they're all exempt from tickets, license plate reading cameras. Yeah. They're all smiling. They're going to be the new royalty.
I mean, you look at what's happening, because I was pointing out to someone the other day that you look at all of our core constitutional liberties here in the States, and you look at the same principles applied around the world where we've already seen the violation of them. We really don't have First Amendment full rights at this point because we can't publicly protest or get a petition to form a public protest. We can't even leave our homes to protest in many of the cities and states in the country. Secondly, you look at the Second Amendment, there's mayors and county governments and city governments saying that they can suspend the sale of firearms. They're going to say that the firearms are not an essential business and thereby close it down. And alternatively, they're shutting down their background check operations so that they can basically stop all gun sales by simply having nobody to process the background. And with 4 states as of this Friday, 4 states, and in 4 states, 4 cities, Democrats have said shut down your gun shops, they're not essential. So it's already begun. They're selectively using this arbitrary power. Exactly. And then the other way to do so, it's a sort of classic sort of Soviet kind of mindset, is you simply shut down the background check operation and then nobody can buy a gun. Because what happens is before you're allowed to buy it, you have to pass the background check, and they never pass you on the background check, not because you failed it, but because there's no government employees there to process it, because they shut down that part of the government operations in the name of efficiency and virus pandemic. Then you look at people's Fourth Amendment rights in terms of their rights for privacy, their rights against the invasion of that privacy, security of their home, security of their intimacies and information. And clearly that's being contravened with the government working together with big tech to surveil people, again, in the name of the virus. We need to track people in the name of the virus. We need to know everywhere you're at. We need to know everybody you've been talking to. We need to know anybody you've been in physical contact with in order to prevent the virus.
This is the end of basically everything that makes us a free society. It's all clearly been pre-planned. If you can tomorrow, Robert, I've been wanting to get you on, you've been too busy. Please come on during the weekday show Monday. I'd love to have you on, say, in the third hour. I'd love to have you come on tomorrow evening in the second hour to get the law together, which I know you have in your head, but maybe send us some exhibits to Daria. We'll put them on screen and really do the trajectory of this. And then your warning to Trump, because you have another guest and a bunch of calls I've got to get to. Sorry, I got to you late. We had some technical stuff launching a special transmission. But can you just, in a minute or two, give us I know you'll give us your real view on where you think Trump is. I don't think he likes this. He tried to block it up front. He tried to play it down. Then he realized the hysteria is too big. He's got to ride the tiger, but I don't want him to go with it too much. What's this balancing act, this nuance, or do you think Trump's part of the problem? What's your message to Trump?
I don't think Trump's part of the problem at all. He was the only major national leader pushing back on the panic from the inception. And what happened was he ran out of room. In other words, once Wall Street started collapsing anyway, once state governments were starting to shut things down anyway, once foreign governments in Europe were shutting down
That's
things
right. The bureaucracy
anyway,
put in their own martial law in a mutinous fashion. So he literally had to join it to try to ride it and control it or be made obsolescent.
Exactly. He's trying. The ride of the tiger is the perfect imagery because I think it was Sam Adams who pointed that out. He said, "Be careful when you ride a tiger about the American Revolution that the tiger doesn't devour you." So I think Trump is trying that careful balance. My greatest concern is that there's literally no one advising Trump, I think, giving him accurate and honest information. I mean, as an example, I have reason to believe that Trump was advised by people that Julian Assange had caused American soldiers to die in the field. And that's how they got Trump to back down off of U.S. government of stopping the prosecution of him. That's
well, exactly. This is a smokescreen, too, for deep state. It rolls out the cashless society. It creates total fear. It sells a surveillance society. It plunges markets for a global reset. It helps authoritarian regimes. And if they can blame Trump, it's absolutely fantastic.
They also think they can print their way out of any problem now. So the key economic policy advisors have been watching the Fed in close detail because usually the people with big money will be telling you what they really think by what they're doing with their money. And they were hitting panic buttons all over the place. Whether it was in response to the virus, I don't think that's what it was. I think it was in response to what they saw governments planning to do with the virus. And there's been various economic advisors that believe that you can just print your way out of it, that the Fed can print ceaseless amounts of money and through a wide range of techniques that are available to them, including their operations in the repo market, including their operations in the community, in the commercial market, in their involvement in other support markets, whereby they can effectively buy, for example, all of the stocks and bonds in the country. There's even talks that they may do so, that they may basically own a majority of U.S.
Like Europe saying they're going to nationalize. And again, it's all a globalist plan. That's why it's following how the globalists demand, you must do it like this, Trump, or we'll blame you, and we'll blame the death, and we'll blame the collapse. He does what they want, and it only gets worse. So we've got to ask, where are they leading us? Total global nationalization under the mega banks. Even mainstream news says that. Think about the solutions and what the people can do. You will join us tomorrow in the second hour?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I guess we're all locked down at home anyways. So that's
exactly.
That's 5 o'clock Central, and that'll be your time out there in Vegas. I guess that's 3 o'clock?
Yep.
All right, 3 o'clock tomorrow. Think about solutions. Recap the last 30 minutes in the first few segments tomorrow. It's so important with new developments. And then give us your solutions, because I know the White House and others are listening. It's no brag. It's just fact. Robert Barnes, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Glad to be here, Alex.
And give folks your Twitter.
Oh, at Barnes_law.
At Barnes_law. Thank you so much, sir.
Hey, thanks a lot, Alex. Bye-bye.
InfoWars. The most banned network in the world.
We've got our warehouse here in Austin, and everything we sell is stocked and ready to ship to you. We're about a day behind. So you order today, it will be shipping to you on Friday. But I'm just going to tell you, with what I've been told and what I've learned from executives that are at big companies, they're being told that if we accept the continued lockdown, they're going to go to total lockdown soon and just see what happens. This is insane. And I hope Trump realizes he's being set up with an over-response. An under-response is bad, an over-response is bad as well. We've got to be balanced about this. So InfoWarsStore.com. Get the boost you and your family need with Living Defense now back in stock, sold out for 4 months, and the krill oil now back in stock, and the X2 and the X3, and the Super Silver toothpaste is sold out. Super Blue has the same amount of nano silver in it. It has tea tree oil that's so good for so many things. Look into that. And we've got the Ultimate Turmeric Formula Bodies back in stock. We've got the 1 ounce Immune Gargle sold out for a month. It's back in stock and it's 20% off. We're about to sell out of the 16 ounce. I don't know when we're going to be getting that back in. That is going to sell out any day now. But a lot of stuff's selling out, a lot of stuff's coming in. But we're talking to our supply chain. They're saying, we don't know. Just like I told you a month ago, they may suspend food sales. We suspended food sales yesterday. Everybody else is sold out. They're lying. They're taking your money. It's criminal. I don't know how you take somebody's money and don't have food to ship them. The food you ordered, most of you got it. The others, it's coming. But they're worried about the future, so we made the decision. We're not selling food anymore, okay? Because we can't guarantee new orders you're going to get it. Same thing with supplements. We have the supplements now. We have the products now. We have them in stock ready to ship. You better get your orders in because these type of products in a crisis like this are the most important thing out there other than a relationship with God and guns and ammo and food and willing to fight. Get your supplements now, InfoWarsStore.com. Do not wait.